All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 257 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. We are super excited for the content we've got planned out for you guys today. As always, this is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way. I'm your host, Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week, to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but also try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today, we've got an article that I'm going to be reviewing that is hopefully going to do just that for you. The title of this article is Marriage as a Mastermind. It was written by Brett and Kate McKay. It was published on April 3rd, 2011. So this is definitely an older article. It was updated on May 30th of 2021. So it's been revised and added to a little bit, but it has, a decade of being on the internet. So this is going to be something that I want to just read for myself because I find the concept of masterminds really, really fascinating. If you don't know what those are, if you're a young person, you're trying to get married, you don't know kind of what a mastermind is and how it could benefit your future marriage. A mastermind is basically just lots of people who are experts in a given field coming together and using their collective wisdom to solve problems. The benefit of it is that you can solve problems and come up with ideas and brainstorm things that you would not be able to solve on your own. And a lot of times in business circles, you'll hear the word mastermind of people coming together with business ideas and selling things and coming together with ideas on how to sell things. But so the title stuck out to me, Marriage as a Mastermind, how we can use the concept of, collective wisdom, how we can use the concept of, a multitude of counselors to strengthen our marriages. And I want to kind of review this for you, not only for you because I think it will help your future marriage, but also I'm curious to review it for myself to see how this article can kind of help my future marriage. We have been doing, up until this point this year, a lot of how-to date videos. So if you guys are looking to go on really, really fun dates and do those dates to the very best of your ability and take your significant other on a date that she will never forget, go back and listen to all of those episodes. We're going to keep doing those, especially throughout the summer, when summer is just an ideal time for going on lots of dates. My wife and I are actually going to do a double date this evening with my sister and brother-in-law at a really famous local restaurant. And so that's going to be something we do. We try to do this as much as we can. And I just think the more you can do for your marriage, the better. I know that it really does change. It gets difficult, carve out time during certain seasons, especially if you have kids or if you've moved jobs or if you've moved homes. By the way, everyone enjoy this new scenery behind me. Lainey and I have successfully moved. As just a quick life update on us. We moved this past week. The last episode that you heard was the last time you will ever see me in that apartment. So we have a much bigger place now. We're still renting, but just an update on the land. We have purchased some land that we would want to build on. I really only want to move one more time, and that time is going to be when we move into our house that we're going to build. We're both working, Lainey and I, for a season right now so we can save faster in order to move into that quicker. The reason we decided to do that was, of course, because if you have two salaries, you're able to tuck more money away despite the bills and the money that's leaving your account. You're able to save money a lot better. The downside is that, of course, there's nobody here during the day to take care of the home. But as I am a teacher, I am also on summer break now, so I have a lot of time to be home, and I can take care of a lot of the home stuff myself now. That will get more difficult back in when August rolls around, but still we found it a worthwhile thing to do, at least for the year leading up to when I would like to build our house. I would like to have the house built as soon as possible. Everything basically, I want to get it up as soon as possible. Next year, I would like to have started on it and finish it as soon as I can. So that was a quick life update on us. But I'm really excited for this article, not only, again, for you guys, but for myself. If you're new here and you're a young believer who is moving towards the goal of marriage and family, welcome. This show is made specifically for you. I try and remember the season of my life when I was a believer in Jesus Christ, trying to live a sexually upright life, trying to find a woman as quick as possible, trying to treat the woman that I had as good as possible and as well as possible and serve her in the best way I possibly could. I try and think back to that time before I got married and then give you all the information that I would have wanted to know, if that makes sense. This show's target audience is kind of myself at a younger age, so I'm making the content that I wish I would have had when I was 18, 19, 20, 21. And so I hope this helps you. He says, a couple months ago, we discussed the concept of masterminds. If you remember, the idea of masterminds was popularized by the success guru Napoleon Hill. He believed that when two or more minds come together with positive energy, and a definite aim and complete harmony, a third mind is formed. All the participants in the mastermind have access to this third mind, which helps the individuals in the group form new ideas and receive inspiration. Thus, masterminds meet with the goal of mutual improvement. I'm going to share my screen for those of you who are subscribed to the show or watching on YouTube. If you would like to see the video content we're producing, go check it out on YouTube. It comes out there at the same time as the podcasts air. And if you want to watch on Spotify, you can subscribe to the show for $5 a month. We really appreciate that, and it helps the show keep going. It just gives me a little bit of a reward for doing this show. This is actually a labor of love right now. I'm not making money from this almost at all. I think I've made like $250 in 4 or 5 years of doing this show. So this is definitely, and you know, the amount of time that goes into producing these episodes is definitely not, I'm not getting basically a payoff. I'm not actually, the amount of time I'm putting into these episodes does not come through in how much money I'm making. So definitely appreciate anything you guys can give me. But again, I'm doing this right now as sort of a form of service. I mean, it's really just, I'm providing to young believers who are trying to get married what I wish I would have had. So, but if you would like to support me, that's a great way to do it. He says, while Hill pointed to examples like the mastermind formed between Andrew Carnegie and his business partners, he believed that the blending of all the minds of men and women produced the most effective alliances of them all. This is a quote: "A man and woman may live together, accumulate a fair sized or even greater fortune, rear and educate a family without the bond of harmony, which is essential for the development of a mastermind. But if all these alliances might be made up more powerful and effective if based upon a foundation of perfect harmony, thus permitting the development of a supplemental power known as the mastermind. Plain cooperative effort produces power. There can be no doubt about this, but cooperative effort that is based upon complete harmony of purpose develops superpower." And the reason I'm a little bit puzzled so far that he's using the term mastermind is I usually hear that in the context of a large gathering of people who are specialists in certain areas. But he's seeming to refer to a mastermind within marriage as sort of this micro mastermind of two people who are just allied in purpose and vision and have a harmonious marriage and therefore can work through problems better together, which is awesome. But I'm curious to see him kind of further hash out this idea of marriage as a mastermind. I thought he was actually going to take this article in the direction of, surrounding your marriage with people who were experts in whatever field and then using their wisdom to improve your own marriage. But he seems to be talking about marriage itself as the mastermind, as the source of, wisdom generating. So this is interesting. He says, the art of manliness, the product of a third brain. If you've been reading the art of manliness for a while, you've probably noticed that many articles on the site are written by me and my wife, Kate. We run the site together. Actually, now I suppose some folks might find it odd that there's a woman working on a site about manliness, but I think the results speak for themselves. Kate is one smart cookie. Her degree in history and experience as an editor have been invaluable resources. And it's not so much that she has a perspective on manliness from the female side of the fence as that she has an incredible insight into the human experience as a whole. So Kate and I work as a team in building AOM. She's the behind the scenes maestro, doing the lion's share of editing and keeping track of hundreds of little details that go into running a website. I'm in charge of the direction and voice of the blog, interacting with readers, implementing ideas, doing PR, and generally keeping things manly. We both write, research, find images, and brainstorm. By the way, if you guys are interested in checking out this website, theartofmanliness.com, Brett McKay has done, I think, over 900 podcast episodes on skills that you're going to need to have down as a man prior to entering marriage. So in the season that you're in right now, listening to my voice, you're going to want to know how to do a lot of the things that he teaches you how to do. And so he's definitely something that I'm going to point you to as far as another great show to listen to and a blog to read if you're a reader. I actually don't read much anymore because I like to be able to do other things while I'm consuming content. And so I stick pretty much exclusively to podcasts and audiobooks. But still, if you would like to read his blog, for what it's worth, it's on there for you. I will include the link to this article in the show notes, and you can get to the main blog from there. It says, when it comes to writing posts, whichever of us have been thinking the most about a subject will start it off, and then the other person will take a look and edit, add their thoughts, and trade it back. And that could happen a couple more times. We talk through things and bounce ideas off each other until a final product emerges, which is far better than if she or I had written it by ourselves. That's a really good point. I mean, anytime, even in this podcast, it's since Landon started helping me record, the whole process of producing content has gotten so much more fun, and the quality of the content has also gone up because you don't just have my perspective on how to make a good date, or you don't just have my perspective on why getting married young can be a really, really great thing, and often is. You have two people with different life stories and experiences coming to the table with a unified vision and purpose, and sharing their wisdom to you guys who are younger, and trying to kind of point you to the goal of marriage, yes, but also equip you and prepare you for the potholes that are ahead of you on the road to get there. And so I wouldn't be able to do that by myself as well as I would, as well as I am with Landon as a co-host. So I'm very grateful for him. And of course, all the help that my wife gives me is what enables me to produce this as well. Obviously wouldn't be able to do it without her. So podcasting is not really her thing. So she doesn't work so much on this project with me, but obviously she is kind of, helps me and keeps me well cared for in just my life, period. Very grateful for her. For those of you who wondered if I changed my tune regarding how amazing marriage was post-marriage, the answer is no. I talked for years about how awesome marriage was before I got married, and I did so from a place of not from a place of experience, but just from a place of looking at numbers and studying things and looking at examples of what a healthy marriage would look like through the people around me who had awesome marriages. And I realized that was something I really, really wanted. And so I kept talking about how awesome it was, and my mind has not changed about it. Lainey and I have almost been married 1 year. We're coming up on our 1 year marriage anniversary, and it has been awesome. I mean, absolutely awesome. It's been hard. I never said that getting married young was not difficult. I never said that getting married young didn't come with challenges, but what I did say is that it was worth it. And that all the difficulties that you go through getting married young are worth, what you get when you get married young. And I have not gone back on that one bit. Would not go back to my season of singleness for any money. I would fight someone to the death before I was dragged back into that. And so I really, really value where I'm at now. And I say this over and over on the show, but I actually have it easier now than you guys do listening to the show if you're not married. My life pre-marriage was much harder in a lot of ways than it is now, even though I have now more responsibility and more things to care for and think about. There are very hard things about being single, and so I definitely have not forgotten those. And something I noticed is that when I was talking to older men about my desire to be married and my drive to be married and my yearning for this relationship, is a lot of them were puzzled at this and didn't seem to understand why I wanted to get married, which sounds awful. I mean, that speaks to the quality of their marriage, sadly. If people don't understand why you're moving towards the goal of marriage, the odds are they probably don't have a great marriage themselves. But a lot of the people that, perhaps discouraged me or were puzzled by the fact that I wanted to move towards the goal of marriage, didn't understand that. And I think, honestly, they've forgotten what it's like to be single. I think it's been so long since a lot of these men who will discourage you from pursuing the goal of marriage have been single that they've forgotten the challenges. They've forgotten the struggles. And already, I find myself tempted to forget. And I'm not going to let myself forget what it was like, It was really difficult. It was really, really difficult. And I'm not saying marriage solves all your problems. I'm not saying it's just, an easy ride for the rest of your life. But what I'm saying is it is so worth it. It is such a worthwhile way to spend your life. If I had to choose, marriage or singleness to live in, as a married man now for almost a year, I would definitely choose marriage over and over again. That's no question. But I won't let myself forget. It is amazing how quickly your mind forgets how difficult it was. It really is. But I still remember, and I'm going to remember and make a conscious effort to remember, because that's kind of a lot of what fuels me producing this stuff for you guys. But he says, it was not at the period, this is another quote. His next subheading, by the way, is other examples of married masterminds. It was at this period of my mental progress, which I have now reached, that I formed the friendship which has been the honor and chief blessing of my existence, as well as the source of a great part of all that I have attempted to do or hope to effect hereafter for human improvement. What I owe, even intellectually, to her in its detail is almost infinite. I have often received praise, which in my own right I only partially deserve, for the greater practicality which is supposed to be found in my writings compared with those of most thinkers who have been equally addicted to large generalizations. The writing in which this quality has been observed were not the work of one mind, but of the fusion of two. And that would, end quote. That is the words of philosopher John Stuart Mill on his most valuable friend, his wife, Harriet Parker. That is a sentiment that more men need to have now and more men need to express. There's sadly this phrase going around culture that dog is man's best friend. That could not be less true, in my opinion. I think that woman is man's best friend. More specifically, a wife is man's best friend. And so when I think of people who actually help me and are there for me and give me the most of themselves and serve me the most, my wife is at the very top of that list in every situation. Animals are not even close. And so that is a really heartbreaking saying that is going around modern culture, which it really breaks my heart because, and number one, it means that if a dog is your best friend, that you have never experienced the joys of a good marriage. You've never experienced the help and service and love that a woman can offer you in the context of a lifelong covenant. And so I feel bad for those people. But number two, it's also just downright false. It's a lie that the greatest friendship a man can have comes from, a canine. That is absolutely sad to me. So I don't like to see people saying that over and over because it's like encouraging people to go for second-rate things when they could be running for the gold. Why would you do that? And of course, the answer is that most people, in their attempt to run for the gold, got either hurt or had a bad experience, or their approach to acquiring the gold was bad. And so they blame the gold itself and say that, silver is the best thing that you can get, when of course that's not true. It's just that your approach to marriage, your approach to the gold was flawed. And so it did not last, or you were not able to get there, or, for whatever reason. It breaks my heart. But moving on, he says, many books are co-authored by a husband and wife team. He gives some examples here. Another example, he says, many small businesses are run by a husband and wife team. 4 married couples have recently received the Nobel Prize. He's just going through things that husbands and wives have done together. Johnny Cash and his wife June Carter worked together and toured for 35 years. It was she who co-wrote one of Johnny's biggest hits, Ring of Fire. See, I didn't even realize that. He says here, of course, there are also lots of situations where husband and wife don't do the exact same thing, but are in similar field and can talk shop. And there are these cases where the maxim of behind every great man holds true, and the wife is an unofficial but essential support in her husband's endeavors. That is really good, and I think that's one of the blessings of these YouTube couples that I see. That's one of the blessings that they have that I actually don't enjoy myself, and I wish I did, is their work is together. What sustains them, what provides them financial success, what puts bread on the table for them is them working together, which is a beautiful thing. As Gabriel Conti, one of them, said, at the beginning of the day, he doesn't have to get up and leave his spouse. He actually gets to work with her in order to sustain their family, which is an awesome thing. And that's something that most people don't get to do. I have a great situation as far as how much time I can spend with Lainey. I get off at 2:30 every day. I get every government holiday. I get like 6 breaks a year, one of which is a summer break, which is like 2.5 months off. I work away from Lainey less than, almost any man works away from his wife. I'm around my wife more than most men are around their wives. And yet there are people who have it even better than I do. There are people who work together, constantly. They work together as part of their job. Their job they do together, and they spend that much more time together, which I think is just a beautiful thing. And of course, the response that I've gotten to that by some people in the past is, well, I don't really want to spend all my time with my wife. I would like some time to be alone and away from her. And to me, while you can point to just me not understanding what it's like to be an introvert all you want, that says something about the quality of your marriage. And I'm not making a value statement on that exactly, but I am saying that if you're saying that if you don't like spending time with your spouse and you would encourage young men not to spend as much time with their spouse as possible, I'd be like, okay, how's the quality, how's the warmth of the fire in your own home, sir? How's the quality of your marriage if you're encouraging men not to get married and not to spend as much time with their spouse as possible? To me, that says that you don't have something to be envied. It says that you kind of have a disaster relationship, and you're trying to warn people away from that. When in reality, a better solution might be, fixing it. And so, that's just, and no disrespect to anybody who disagrees with me on this, but I really react strongly to men who would encourage me and have encouraged me in the past to not spend as much time with my wife as possible. I think that's probably some of the worst advice I've ever gotten in my entire life. And so I would just encourage you guys, it is not a bad thing to prioritize and pursue fields that enable you to spend time with your wife. I would say that your values are intact by doing that, and that is a very sound goal to pursue as far as morality goes. So definitely don't be scared to do that, and don't let other people tell you not to pursue that and pursue money or fame or status above time with your spouse. I definitely think that is going to end them up somewhere they don't want to be, especially when they're old. But he continues on saying, for example, many politicians will say that their wife was practically their campaign manager while they were running for office. And many a husband from diverse walks of life has used his wife as a sounding board from which to bounce off ideas and get feedback. That's definitely true. Everything that I talk about, I basically ask my wife what she thinks of. And I don't think I'm alone in that as far as, men asking their wives for very serious advice on very serious things and very serious issues they bring up with her. I mean, she is my most trusted confidant. She's who I go to with the most serious things that are concerning me and troubling me. And that's what you guys are going to have. That's one of the reasons why being married is so amazing, is you have that confidant. You have somebody who's close enough to you that you can bring anything to that person. I mean, just picture that in your mind, a relationship so close and permanent and present that you can bring any issue to it and ask for help. I mean, that is just awesome. Truly awesome. He says, every marriage, a mastermind. That's his next heading. Every marriage, a mastermind. He says, but you don't have to run a business together to make your marriage a mastermind. In fact, some couples would find the lack of barriers between their professional and personal lives rather undesirable. That's what I don't understand. Somebody reach out to me and explain this. He says, some couples would find the lack of barriers between their professional and personal lives rather undesirable. To me, having no boundaries or barriers between personal and business, it would be ideal. It would be idyllic if you could make money spending time with your wife. Who would not want to do that, in my opinion? Unless, of course, you don't have a great marriage, which then I understand. But there seems to be this idea going around that men, for good reasons, supposedly good reasons, want to spend time away from their wives and work. And I don't understand that, and I never have. So please explain this to me if you can, in a way, if there's something I'm missing here and not understanding. He says, Kate and I spend almost 24/7 together without getting sick of each other. He's one of these couples that can his work, what sustains his family, is tied up in his relationship with his wife. That is awesome. He says, but we've been told that we are unusually compatible. It's certainly not something for everyone. Well, I mean, compatibility, I don't know. I suppose, yeah, it is a thing. Compatibility is a thing, but it's like at some point you've just got to make it work. You can't just say we're not compatible and just throw in the towel. You have to get off your butt and do the work to make it better. So I don't know. Anyway, moving on, it says, but any marriage can be a mastermind. Hopefully you've already gotten two of the components of a mastermind down already: positive energy and complete harmony. You might even have a third leg as well, a definite aim. There can be a lot. So let's break those down. He says positive energy, complete harmony, and a definite aim are the three elements essential for a mastermind. And to have a mastermind in your marriage, you need those three elements: positive energy, complete harmony, and a definite aim. He says there can be a lot of worthy goals to have as a couple, but to form a mastermind, be sure to add this one to the mix: mutual improvement. So let's go through them again. Number 1, positive energy. Number 2, complete harmony. Number 3, a definite aim. Number 4, mutual improvement. I think marriage is the ultimate place for all 4 of those things. It's the ultimate place of positive energy because your wife is your biggest cheerleader. I mean, nobody was going to cheer you on more than your spouse, more than your wife, more than your significant other. And so positive energy, marriage definitely has the positive energy element of a mastermind down. Number 2, complete harmony. I would say that a lot of marriages should have complete harmony and don't, but if you're actually doing marriage right, you're working towards complete harmony constantly and learning to sacrifice and yield and give yourself up for your partner. And so in doing so, you get closer to harmony than you would be able to by yourself. Number 3, a definite aim. Marriage definitely has a definite aim, or should. Again, if you're doing it right, it's possible to not have any of these things, but you should have a definite aim in your marriage. Honoring God, loving your wife well, serving other people, getting as close as you possibly can to this person God has entrusted you with, and building a family with her. I mean, that is a wonderful aim to have with someone. And again, some people will say, what's the mission of your marriage? What's the purpose of your marriage? What's the fill in the blank of your marriage? And, being fruitful, filling the earth, subduing what you've been given, being a good steward, all those things are great aims. But another great aim that is totally underrated in modern culture is just getting as close as you can to this person. There's no cap on how close you can be to your partner in the context of a marriage. And marriage is the only relationship where that's the case. That marriage is the only relationship where that's the case, where there is no cap, there is no limit as to how close you can get to this person. There are limits to sibling relationships, there are limits to parenting relationships, there are limits to friendship relationships, there are limits to coworker relationships, but there is no limit to how close and how well you can know this person in the context of a marriage. That's one of the reasons marriage is one of the best things I would say there is in life. And so definitely a definite aim that's underrated is getting as close as you can to this person for the rest of your life and trying to know her better for the rest of your life and trying to serve her better for the rest of your life. And mutual improvement is his last one. He says that a marriage mastermind needs to have mutual improvement. And that's something that I actually think is not a choice. So you are going to there's going to be mutual improvement in your marriage, even if you're not, I would say, necessarily doing marriage perfectly, because in a marriage, you're going to have to lay down your life for your partner in ways that you were not asked to lay your life down when you were single. And so even if you are selfishly declining, and here's the beautiful thing about marriage, even if you selfishly decline to lay your life down when asked by your spouse to do so, there are going to be negative consequences that start falling on your head. And those consequences are going to get so heavy that eventually you decide, oh my gosh, I've just got to become less selfless. I've just got to actually lay my life down. I was going to try and not do it, but now I actually have to do it. And so mutual improvement, I think, is going to happen even to selfish people, like profoundly selfish people. Because if you want to if you're selfish, your marriage is going to get miserable. Your marriage is going to get really, really, really miserable really, really fast. And the only solution is to start laying your life down. The only solution to actually improving the quality of your marriage is to actually lay your life down. So marriage is the ultimate maturer of men. It is the ultimate path to mutual improvement, I would say, and it's designed of God to be that way. I mean, there's no other relationship that asks more of you, that asks for more sacrifice from you. And so I definitely think that mutual improvement is something that marriage has, is a quality of the mastermind that marriage has. He says that is helping each other grow, expand, and improve, come up with new ideas, and have new experiences. A mastermind marriage is one in which each spouse helps the other become better and reach their personal goals. I actually don't like this definition because it makes it individualistic, and not collaborative, not communal. It says mastermind marriage is one in which each spouse helps the other become better and reach their personal goals. So it's like the purpose of our marriage, I would say, is not me helping Lainey attain her goals and her helping me attain my own individual goals. The purpose of a marriage, I would say, is to serve one another well and to have goals for the marriage rather than goals for ourselves. So integrating every part of our life and pursuing goals that are now in line with our marriage rather than ourselves. It's all about losing yourself and gaining something much bigger. And so I don't actually like that definition. He moves on, though, to say this process is called self-expansion. It doesn't just benefit each individual partner. It also greatly strengthens the marriage as a whole. Researchers have found that the more self-expansion people experience from their partner, the more committed and satisfied they are in the relationship. The more self-expansion people experience from their partner, the more committed and satisfied they are in the relationship. Well, I would say that sounds like it's just because they're still selfish. The more self-expansion people experience from their partner, in other words, their partner is actually helping them pursue their own individual goals, the more committed and satisfied they are in the relationship. Well, no wonder they're getting what they want. They're getting their own personal goals and somebody to help them in their own personal goals. That's not hard to do. Of course you're going to be satisfied. Of course you're going to be committed when somebody's basically coming behind you and helping you do whatever you want. I would say a better definition of marriage is having a new goal as a couple that is in line with the will of God, and then helping each one another move towards that goal. Because again, if you're just trying to get somebody to help you move towards your own personal goals, that's still motivated from a place of selfishness. That's not motivated from a place of selflessness. And so I would say that's a better definition of a good marriage mastermind. He says a true married mastermind is achieved when spouses not only grow, but grow together, achieving a powerful oneness. He says additional research suggests that spouses eventually adopt the traits of the other and become slower to distinguish differences between them, or slower to remember which skills belong to which spouse. That is actually really interesting. If you're married long enough, I've heard that you get really similar and you forget kind of how you were, because again, you're losing yourself and you're becoming one, is how Paul says it. You're becoming a new person, a new creation, a new entity with this other person. It's very much like our relationship with God, right? We're asked to bring to the table a willingness to pick up our cross and follow. We're asked to lay down our lives for Christ. And in doing so, we have this new relationship where we're becoming more like God, more like Jesus Christ. And that, of course, is an amazing thing, but it's no longer just you. It's less selfish. It's less self-centered. It's more, it's bigger. It's something different. And that's exactly what happens in marriage. I mean, there are things in ways that I've changed, even only being married 1 year, where I look back now and I think, man, was I like that? Was I like that pre-marriage? Did I actually do that? And now I'm totally different because I've had to mature and evolve and adapt in order to maintain a good relationship with this woman who's asking me to lay my life down, and rightfully so. He says, in experiments by Dr. Aaron, participants rated themselves and their partners on a variety of traits, like ambitious or artistic. A week later, these subjects returned to the lab and were shown the list of traits and asked to indicate which ones describe them. Oh, this is going to be funny. Are they going to forget which ones describe them? People responded the quickest to traits that were true of both of them and their partner. When the trait described only one person, the answer came more slowly. That's so funny. When the delay was measured in milliseconds, but nonetheless suggested that when individuals were particularly close to someone, their brains were slower to distinguish between their traits and those of their spouses. That is so funny to me. Again, more of just the mystery of becoming one. There's less of yourself, and there's more of a whole unit, You're more of a whole unit. You're part of a larger whole, which is just a beautiful thing. You're an ingredient to the dish. You're not just the whole showstopper yourself. It's easy to answer those questions, Brett McKay says, if you're both the same. Actually, I'm sorry, that's a quote from Dr. Lewandowski. It says, but if it's true of you and not of me, then I have to sort it out. It happens very quickly, but I have to ask myself, is that me or is that you? And it's not that these couples lost themselves in the marriage. Instead, they grew in at activities, traits, and behaviors that they had not been part of their original identity before the relationship were now an essential part of how they experience life. I would actually disagree with this one. I think it is that the couples lost themselves. They lost their selfish natures. They lost their identity as an individual and gained an identity as a member of something bigger, as a part of a greater whole. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things marriage does for you. It really is. He says all of this can be highly predictive for a couple's long-term happiness. The first set is side by side. With each new set, the circles begin to overlap until they are nearly on top of one another. Couples choose the set of circles that best represent their relationship. Very interesting. This is a fascinating study. But here at the end, his last section, kind of wrapping this up for you guys, is how to form a married mastermind. He says the key to turning your marriage into a mastermind, into this idyllic machine moving towards the union's goal and not individual goals, is to always be challenging each other and to be better at bringing your best self to the relationship. I think that's true. Also, I would add laying your life down for your partner and keeping in mind that you're a unit now. You're one, and you're moving towards a new goal under the headship of God. You're not moving towards your own individual goals. You've made a bond, an unseverable bond that has got to outlast your personal ambitions and desires for achievement. It's got to outlast your own personal preferences. And so you've got to keep that in mind. Take an interest in what each other is working on. If your wife is working on a new project at work or at home, ask her about it. Don't just nod your head and act like you're listening. Ask some probing questions, challenge her thinking. Ask your wife to do the same with you about your work. Help and offer support when you're able to. It says, even before Kate and I worked on the blog together, we helped each other with our individual endeavors. When Kate was working on her master's thesis, I read it a few times to offer suggestions on how it could be improved. And when she started teaching community college, I helped her plan a few lectures where I had some expertise on a particular subject. He says, talk about stuff other than work or kids. This is huge. Man, one of the biggest pieces of advice that my in-laws, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, I call them my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, gave me prior to getting married was, don't allow your children to become the center of your marriage. Don't allow your children to become the only thing that's keeping your marriage together. Don't allow your children to become precedent over your marriage. And I think that is wonderful advice. And sadly, that's, something that happens to a lot of people. And you can see why it happens, right? I mean, here you have this new being that you've both created and brought into the world, and you have the responsibility of rearing and providing for and caring for and nurturing. And that takes a lot of your time and thought and energy. And it's a process that lasts for, 18 to 20 years. Part of it lasts 18 to 20 years. It goes beyond that. But, and so that's such a big project that can become your whole life. If you're not careful, that can become your whole marriage. And it can sometimes, take precedence over the marriage that started that person to begin with. And so I would be careful of that. And I think they were right on the money there as far as something to avoid for Lainey and I. And we definitely do. I can't obviously speak from personal experience yet because we don't have a child, but whenever we do, I do want to make sure that we're keeping the marriage, prioritized and not letting it fall to the back burner, just because we have a beautiful little being to care for. But he says, when Kate and I go out to restaurants, we like to watch people a bit. Something we've consistently observed are couples who sit across from each other in silence the entire meal, or if they do talk, they talk about their kids or work. Yeah, I do think that is a problem. And I get that your relationship will go through phases where you talk more during sometimes, especially if you're tired and work is just taking it out of you. You might not have the strength to talk as much, but just make sure you're making an effort to connect. You've got to connect somehow. It's more about the connection than how you're connecting, I would say. So talking is obviously a big part of connection, though. So you've got to be able to talk with your partner. He says, check your pride at the door. In order for a mastermind group to work, you have to check your pride at the door and be willing to accept feedback and criticism. That's true. And that's something you're going to have to, that's coming for you guys who are soon to be married or looking to be married, is you're going to have, your spouse is going to ask you to lay your life down, like I've said over and over, in ways that you didn't expect. And so you've got to be able to do that. He says this can be especially hard in a relationship because it's easy to prioritize or personalize criticism, both in giving and receiving. When we first started working on the blog together, Kate and I found this pretty challenging, but with a lot of effort, we've become more in sync and understanding of our different working and communication styles. You need to have a mutual understanding that you can only give criticism that has the purpose of uplifting and edifying. That's absolutely true. I'm going to read that again. You need to have a mutual understanding that you can only give criticism that has the purpose of uplifting and edifying. That it all has to go back to making the relationship better, improving the quality of your moving towards your marriage goal with one another, encouraging one another in that, uplifting and edifying one another in that. Otherwise, it's just destruction with no purpose. He says each person in the relationship has to constantly check themselves to ensure that pride never rears its ugly head. He says regular meetings and yearly retreats are something that makes a marriage a mastermind. Kate and I have daily meetings where we discuss not only issues affecting the website, but also in our home life. If you guys missed the episode we did on the weekly marriage meeting, go back and check that out. That's something that Lainey and I have not implemented into our own marriage yet, but we're excited to look into. But make sure you do that. He says children need a married mastermind. That's true, man. That's true. I mean, I assume that's true. Based on what I know about raising children from being a public school teacher and working with 5-year-olds for a living, you need wisdom and counsel and mentorship in order to do it right. Because obviously you've never done it before. If you're a first-time parent, you've not done it. And so you're going to need that external wisdom. But he says, if there's ever a time when you need the power of a third brain, it's when you have kids. You and your wife have this incredible responsibility to raise these little people to be fully functioning adults. As new parents, Kate and I have seen how useful it is to have two people working together to raise a baby. I cannot imagine how difficult it would be as a single parent to raise a child. Props and kudos to all of you who have done that. I mean, that's got to be incredibly hard. It's got to be incredibly hard. He says, marrying a woman who's on board with a mastermind idea. Absolutely true. One of the things that keeps coming up is this concept of submission. And I'll close soon, I promise, guys, but I want to end kind of on this. And submission gets kind of a bad rap in modern culture because it seems misogynistic and chauvinistic, and like people are trying to control each other and gain power over each other. And feminism and the manosphere and all of this has only worsened that ideology in that we then drag into our marriages. But you really need to approach marriage in with the idea and the worldview that submission is actually a good thing, and it's something that needs to be practiced by both parties, and it's something that needs to be, selflessness and laying your life down for someone and yielding has got to be a skill that you're going to learn if you want to have a happy marriage. If you don't want to have a happy marriage, if you want to have a miserable marriage where you're fighting all the time, then go ahead and do whatever selfish crap you want. Don't yield, don't submit, just do whatever you want without even talking to your partner about it. And then that will get you right where you're wanting to go. But if you want a happy marriage, if you want a really great marriage, full of, harmony, like he said, the mastermind idea of harmony and beauty and joy, then you're going to have to learn to yield, man. You're going to have to learn to yield. You're going to have to learn to lay your life down. And so and it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's really cool. It's really cool. It makes you more than you could be by yourself. But he closes the article off saying, are you part of a married mastermind? Share your stories and insights with us in the comments. So for those of you who are moving towards the goal of marriage yet, this question doesn't so much apply to you in the present right now, but this is something you want to consider going into a relationship with your future significant other or your significant other now that you're with, moving towards the goal of marriage. Are you able to put aside your selfish interests for the benefit of the marriage, the mastermind, the union, the oneness, whatever you want to call it? Are you willing to and able to set aside your own personal wishes and desires and preferences for the sake of the flourishing of the union, the flourishing of the marriage, the oneness? Because that's got to be your ultimate goal. If your ultimate goal is just doing what you want, you're not going to have a happy marriage. If your ultimate goal is prioritizing harmony and love in your marriage, then you're going to have an awesome relationship. So that's kind of the thought that I'm going to leave you guys with. If you want to have a successful mastermind, if you want to have a successful marriage mastermind, if you want to have a successful, harmonious relationship with this woman who's such a help to you, then make sure you can yield, make sure you can give your life up, lay your life down, pick up your cross, whatever terminology you want to use, die for your spouse, whatever terminology you want to use, do that. And you're going to have to be able to do that well. And, obviously we don't go into marriage being able to do that right away. I was certainly not going into marriage ready to, perfectly lay my life down for my spouse. I learned, I'm still learning that along the way, but just start, man. Just start learning how to do that. It's great. So thank you guys so much for listening today. Hope it's generated value for you. Hope it's given you kind of a goal to run towards with your current relationship. If you're trying to get married as soon as possible, as young as possible in a healthy way, making your marriage into a mastermind can't be a bad idea. It's always a good thing to have a harmonious sort of counsel and sort of relationship with your partner instead of just you making a bunch of, dim-witted decisions. It's always great to have a team. Teams are always better than individuals. And so work to have a good team, work to have a good marriage, work to have a good mastermind marriage. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Reach out and let me know what you thought of this episode through the link in the show notes. You can send me a personalized audio voice message. Give me thanks, questions, comments, feedback, an alternate perspective, your story, anything at all. I would love to hear you and make me feel super connected to you as an audience member and make this podcasting system two-way. You can also follow the Restoring Rapport podcast on Instagram and Facebook if you're interested in the content we post there as well. So thank you guys so much for listening today, and we will talk to you all next time.